Throughout the parashiyos of Truma and Tetzava, Kisisa, Vayakal, and Pekudei, the Torah discusses all the different things that they made for the Melechas HaMishkan. And there's lists. And those lists are not always in the same order. However, Rashi in Brochos tells us that the list in Parshas Kisisa, where it's mentioned briefly, is actually the list and the Seder that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said told Moshe Rabbeinu and was mitzvah to Moshe Rabbeinu originally. It's the pasuk in Perek Lamed Aleph pasuk Zayin, the Eis Oil Moed, Ves Aron leEidus, first the Oil Moed, then the Aron leEidus Ves HaKaporos, Ves Klei Oil as HaShulchan Ves Keilim. So that's actually the same Seder. It's a medrash that Rashi brings down in Pekudei, in the Pekudei Perek Lamed Ches pasuk Chof Beis. It's a Gemarah in Brochos Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph. The Gemarah in Brochos Daf Nun Hey Amud Aleph says like this: that why was Betzalel called Betzalel? Betzalel is a lashon of Betzel Kel, in the shadow of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because there was a conversation that Moshe Rabbeinu had with Betzalel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, "Asay li Mishkon Aron v'Keilim." First the Mishkan, that's like the pasuk in Kisisa. First comes Oil Moed, and then the Aron, and then the Keilim. Rashi says that it's referring to the pasuk in Parshas Kisisa. Halach Moshe v'Hafach. Moshe Rabbeinu for some reason turned it around, and he turned it around and said the other way. V'amalei asay Aron v'Keilim u'Mishkan. First, Moshe Rabbeinu said you should be the auto order. First the Aron, then the Keilim, and then the Mishkan, which is actually the order in Parshas Truma. First comes the Aron, then comes the Keilim, then comes the Mishkan. Amalei Moshe Rabbeinu. Minhag shalaylam adam boine bayis v'achakach machnas asaycha Keilim. So Betzalel tells Moshe Rabbeinu it can't be. It can't be that that's the order. It can't be that Aron comes first. Why? Because look at how people are. First he builds himself a house. And after that, once he has a house built, that's when he brings in his utensils and his furniture. And you're telling me to first make the Aron, then and the keilim, which is the shulchan and the menorah, u'mishkan after that, and to make the mishkan after that. Keilim shani yoyse lehechem achnisem. These keilim that I'm going to create, where am I going to keep them? Shem kacham HaKadosh Baruch Hu, could it be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you asay mishkan Aron v'keilim? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you to do it the other way, that to do it first the mishkan and then the Aron and then the keilim? Amaloi, so Moshe Rabbeinu told Betzalel, wow, brilliant. Shema Betzalel Kela Yisav Yadata. Maybe you were in the Eibishter's shadow, and you were listening in when HaKadosh Baruch Hu Taka said first the Mishkan and then the Aron, then the Keilim. So how do we know these two versions? These two versions of these two Siddharim, these two orders, is the order in Parshas Truma, where in Parshas Truma it starts with the Aron and then it does the Keilim, and at the end of the Parsha we have the Kroshim and the Mishkan, building the Mishkan. So that's Aron v'Keilim u'Mishkan. And in Parshas Kisisa, it's first comes the Oil Moed and then comes the Aron and the Mishkan. That's the two different versions. How do we know that Betzalel changed? How do we know that Betzalel had any? That's why Betzalel is called Betzalel, because of this conversation, which is the Mashal's question, the Gemarah in Brochos. Just because his name is Betzalel, that means that he had this whole conversation. Where did this conversation come from? So I think the Makar is Rashi in Parshas Pekudei. Rashi in Parshas Pekudei, pasuk Lamed Ches, Perek Lamed Ches, pasuk Chav Beis. The pasuk says, "Ubetzalel ben Uri ben Chol lemata Yehuda asa es kol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe." Why is it asa es kol asher tziva Hashem es Moshe? Asher tziva oisei Moshe en ksev. It doesn't say everything that Moshe Rabbeinu commanded Betzalel to do. It says everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Moshe Rabbeinu. Betzalel did what Hashem commanded Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is that? So And that's what Rashi says. In other words, even things that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't originally tell Betzalel to do, because Moshe Rabbeinu said it in the other order, but he did what Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu to do. So that's how we know that the order. That's how we know that Betzalel, some sort of overrided what Moshe Rabbeinu had told him. In other words, he changed the order. And we know that there's two orders. We know that first comes the Mishkan, and then comes the Aron, the keilim in Parshas Sisa. And in Parshas Truma, first comes the Aron and the keilim, and then comes the Mishkan. Which was first and which was second? In other words, what did Moshe Rabbeinu tell Betzalel, and what did Betzalel say, no, we should do the other way? So the Gemarah in Brochos says that actually HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu Mishkan Aron v'Keilim, and Moshe Rabbeinu changed it, and that's how it was ultimately done. Mishkan Aron v'Keilim. But the Medrash in Parshas Pekudei, Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Pekudei has it the other way. The Medrash Rabbah has it that Betzalel is called Betzalel because of his chachma, and like the Medrash Rabbah, it went the other way. It went first when the Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that told Betzalel to do the Mishkan, Aron, the keilim, like in Parshas Sisa, and Betzalel changed it to Parshas Truma. Now, why has the way the Gemarah says it, we understand, because ultimately in Parshas Vayakal and Pekudei it sounds like first came the Aron and first came the Mishkan, then came the Aron v'Keilim. But in the Medrash, it's not clear how the Medrash knew what came first and what came second, and first one talked about it. But that's clear that there's two Siddharim, there's two lists, and we know that Betzalel changed it because it says Kol Shetziva Hashem es Moshe. And that the Machlokes, the Medrash, and the Gemarah is which one came first and which one came second. So what's the svaras? What's the reasons? In other words, like the Gemarah, Moshe Rabbeinu changed it that the Aron should come first, and Betzalel changed it back to the Mishkan, that the Mishkan has to come first, and like the Medrash went the other way. What are the reasons for that? So the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu changed that the Aron should come before the Mishkan is the same reason that the Medrash says that Betzalel changed it that the Aron should ultimately come first. What does the Medrash say? The Medrash says, Amalei Betzalel, the Heicham Torah Nusun, B'Shosh Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Moshe, Asei, it's a Medrash Rabbah, Parsha Mentes, Parsha Nun, Ois Beis. B'Shosh Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Moshe Asei HaMishkan, Bava Amalei L'Betzalel, Amalei Ma'u HaMishkan Hazeh, what's this Mishkan? Amalei Shishah HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shechinasu B'Seichem, Malami Torah L'Yisrael, he's going to teach Torah. Amalei Betzalel V'Heichen HaTorah, and sooner where is it going to be? Amalei Mishan, why is it HaMishkan? Once we make the Mishkan, we're going to make an Aron. Amalei Rabbeinu Moshe, En Kvei D'Shal Torah B'Kach, Elakach Anu Oisim, HaAron V'Achkach HaMishkan. So in other words, since the whole reason for the Mishkan is that we should teach Torah, and the Torah is going to be put in the Aron, so the source of the covenant and the importance of the Mishkan is for the Aron, so the Aron should come first. So it seems like something's importance makes it come first in when we're making it, even though it's obviously not it's not functioning until it's all together, until the whole Mishkan's all put together. But when we make it itself, we want to give the first thing that's needed for its covenant should come. The thing that's the most important for the covenant should come first. And the Medrash says that Betzalel, in the Medrash's version that the Aron ultimately came first, Betzalel, the svara Because since the whole purpose of the Mishkan was to teach Torah to Klal Yisrael, so and that was put in the Aron. So the Aron is the most important thing, so that should come first. So that's obviously the reason why Moshe Rabbeinu in the Gemarah changed it, even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Gemara's version, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Mishkan Aron v'keilim, Moshe Rabbeinu hafach chesed dvar. Why was he hafach chesed dvar? For that tzvar, for that reason. Even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the Mishkan, and then the Aron, and then the keilim, but Moshe Rabbeinu understood that the Aron has to come first, because the Aron is the source of Melamed Torah Yisrael. How Moshe Rabbeinu understood why HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him the Mishkan, even though the Aron has to come first, I don't know. But Betzalel's reason needs explanation. Like the Gemarah, Moshe Rabbeinu was hafach chesed dvarim, and he made the Mishkan, Aron, and then the keilim. And Betzalel says no. Moshe Rabbeinu said the Aron, the Mishkan, and then the keilim. And Betzalel changed it and said no. It has to be first the Mishkan, and then the Aron, and then the keilim. That the Mishkan has to come first. He says, you know why? Because look how people are. People, when they build that, when they're setting up a house, first they build a house, and then they bring the furniture and the keilim. So same thing over here. When where am I going to put all these keilim shani yoyse lehechem nachnisim? Where am I going to keep them? Where am I going to keep all the keilim? Where am I going to keep the Aron, the Shulchan, and the Menorah? Where am I going to keep it if I'm not going to make the Mishkan first? The problem is, like all the Mefarshim ask, until the whole Mishkan's put together, we're not going to be making the Mishkan. We're not going to put it up anyway. You need storage. You need where to store the furniture. I'm anyways not storing it in the Mishkan until it's put together. Until we're going to make until they made the whole Mishkan, it was all kept in storage. It wasn't kept in the Mishkan. So what's Betzalel's eitzah? Why is Betzalel insisting on making the Mishkan first? And then this way I'll have a place to put the keilim. I'm anyways not putting the keilim into the Mishkan during construction. During construction, everything's anyways in the storage. In some storage, they found the storage to put it. For two reasons. First of all, because we know Rashi says that even once everything was all made, nobody was able to be making the krushim. So if you can't be making the krushim, so they didn't have it up all along, it wasn't put together. You needed Moshe Rabbeinu. And also we know that the Mishkan wasn't put, it was all finished by Chanukah time, and it wasn't, and that comes on Mishkan didn't happen until Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So for all that time it was in storage. So what's the keilim shani yoyse lehechem nachnisim? Betzalel wants to know where to keep it. I'm anyways not keeping it in the Mishkan. So Moshe Rabbeinu was right. It should be first the Aron and the keilim, and then the Mishkan, because the Aron is the source of the kedusha and the reason why we're making the Mishkan. Where you're going to keep it? You're anyways not keeping it in the Mishkan. So I think maybe keilim shani yoyse lehechem nachnisim, and it has to be some sort of a svar, or something that's we're learning up from minhag shalaylam. We're learning it up from something that how people do it. Since people work this way, so we by the Mishkan it should also be that way. So I was thinking that maybe keilim shani yoyse lehechem nachnisim is not where I should store it. He means in the usage of the keilim. In other words, a person while somebody's building a house, he still has to live. He still has needs that have to be fulfilled. But he still doesn't bring in his furniture into the construction site. He doesn't bring it into that place because the house is not built yet, and this is not a place to live. So even keilim shani yoyse lehechem nachnisim is ultimately when I'm going to build it. even after once I'm going to put together the Mishkan. This is a svara why the Mishkan itself is the source of the kedusha of the Mishkan. Even though the Aron is where the Torah is kept, but the Torah is kept in a Mishkan, and until you have a Mishkan, you don't have a functioning place for Asheras Hashchina. Just like Minhagei Shaloylam, that until you have the house, until the house is completed, you don't bring in the furniture. And even though you have some needs, but you can't use it in a place that's not put up. The same to the Mishkan. The Mishkan, even though there's kedusha and there's different kinds of things that could be done with these keilim, but until they're in the Mishkan, there's no kedusha. So keilim shani yosel lehechem achnisim is a svara why the Mishkan is the most important. Just like in the Medrash and what Moshe Rabbeinu felt. That the Aron it has to be made first because it's the most important, because it's the source of kedusha. But Betzalel was saying a svara that the Mishkan is the most important, and that's the source of the kedusha. Because without a Mishkan, I don't have a place to bring in these utensils. I don't have a place to bring in this furniture. And Mamela, I don't have a place where there's Asheras Hashchina.